So welcome everyone to All About Fellowships as part of this year's annual Professional Development Week. So we thank the Graduate School for allowing us to have this platform to share with you opportunities to apply for these prestigious opportunities and ways to hopefully enhance your graduate education here at Rutgers-Camden and maybe even earn some scholarships and or funding for the activities that you're involved in. I'm going to go ahead and get started. There we go. So here's just a kind of an overview for you today. We'll introduce ourselves, of course. We're going to talk a little bit about what fellowships are. For some of you, you may be new to this arena, and we're going to kind of break down really what a fellowship is and kind of what that process would look like. We're going to take some time to share with you some featured fellowship opportunities that we think are a good fit for graduate students as a whole. And then we're going to share some student stories of applicants from our campus who've had successes and various experiences applying for these awards. And then again, we'll take time at the end to hear from you and your specific interests. So I'll start. I'm here representing OSDFA. I use the acronym because it is a mouthful. That is the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advisor. My name is My name is Laura Collins, and I'm the director. And we are located in Armitage Hall on the second floor within the class space. So for most of you graduate students, you probably don't spend a lot of time over here, but we are where the tutoring center is. And for our undergraduate students, a lot of their campus resources like TRIO and EOF and other avenues of student success. I'll kick it over to Jeannie Garman.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jeannie Garman. I'm the Director of Research Development at the Research Office here at Rutgers-Camden. Our office supports faculty, staff, and students in seeking external funding opportunities. Our offices are also in Armitage Hall, just one floor above Laura's.
Hi, everyone. I'm Deborah Lynham. I'm the Graduate Research and Grants Assistant over at the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences. Our building is located on 5th Street, right by the walkover at the law school. You can reach me at the email that is listed here. The phone number is our main office line, and it doesn't come to me directly. So if you need any assistance in this realm, fellowships, grants, scholarships, just reach out via email, and I have appointment slots open that grad students can meet with me, and we can talk through any questions that you have, or if you'd like to just have an overview of how the whole process works. That's my role here.
Excellent. All right. So I titled this Fellowships, Awards, Grants, oh my. I think Deborah just gave a great introduction by saying grants, scholarships, fellowships. A lot of these terms are used interchangeably, and that's perfectly okay. In fact, I just got an email from a community of national fellowship advisors that said, you know, I'm doing a presentation to the stakeholders on our campus. Can anyone give me an exact definition for how these things are different from one another? And the community sort of all laughed. And one of the advisors within it says, I'm writing my dissertation about this exact topic. So don't be surprised if you hear us use these terms interchangeably. Essentially, these are all awards that support your work, your activities, the experiences that you want to have. And I think that the biggest distinction that we always try to make when we're talking with potential applicants is to think of a fellowship, scholarship awards, as an investment in your future. Okay, so I think that a lot of folks come to the table assuming that this will be like prior things that they've applied for, maybe, you know, when you were applying for undergraduate, that's really based on your achievements and merit up until that point. And while certainly there are a number of awards that are going to be looking at your history of, you know, achievements, and they're going to be looking for certain criteria that will make you distinct, what is most important and what they will most be interested in is how you have a story and a narrative to tell about what you plan to do in the future, how this award, this opportunity, the experiences will propel you forward, and how you're going to leverage this into the career that you say you want to have. So it's really about forward thinking and less about like backward thinking. So for a lot of our undergrads, we're always saying it's okay if you haven't had those achievements yet. For a lot of the awards you guys will be looking at, certainly you're going to want to boast the things that you've done well, but it's also, again, about that fit moving forward. Who are these opportunities for? clearly it's everyone. I hope that that is clear. Another thing that we talk a lot about is folks feeling a sense of maybe imposter syndrome or like, well, I'm not competitive for this opportunity, but we can assure you that there really are awards and opportunities that everyone is a good fit for, and that we will work with you through the various different platforms to find something that is a good fit, and often that will propel you forward toward other opportunities. So if you have any of these interests, whether it be having an abroad opportunity, there are so many that fit that category. You want to fund your research or have more research opportunities, gain experience with kind of public avenues, including professional experience, seek additional graduate training. All of these are ways in which you can kind of use these opportunities. So of course, if you were to earn the outcome that you're applying for, there would be financial support as a primary benefit, but the process in itself is so beneficial to many applicants. It's an opportunity to really clarify your goals. And again, these are some of the outcomes that you see here on the screen. Of course, traveling abroad, competitive advantage, networking, all of those things. They really are focused on outcomes, but there are many, many benefits along the way just through going through the process. Working kind of through that narrative form really forces you to turn inward, look inside, and really think about what you want to achieve in the future. And that alone oftentimes leads to new directions in your research and your kind of graduate questions that you're exploring, maybe even the career goals that you have for yourself. So the benefits, although these are like outcome driven, are just plentiful. So what would a fellowship committee be looking for? Of course, number one is that clear sense of purpose and how you're connecting what you're doing now and what you want to do in the future to the opportunity that you're applying for. They will be interested in the things that you've been involved in, and again, how that makes sense in your entire narrative. Any opportunities that you've had to serve in various leadership positions, including not like formal title leadership, but moments where you've sort of stepped outside of yourself, called others in, really been community driven. That plays a huge role in a lot of the awards that we work with. Chances where you can showcase the research and the research questions, the kind of critical thinking you like to do. And then of course, grades do often kind of come into play, but you'd be surprised how many awards do not put the emphasis on grades that you might think. And so I wouldn't expect that this group isn't a group of outstanding intellectuals who have really strong academic records. But again, oftentimes when we're talking to a diverse audience, often, students who maybe just feel like they're not qualified for these awards, and they often are disqualifying themselves based on, well, I don't have an X, Y, and Z GPA. And that really isn't the primary focus. It's really some of these other variables that drive your competitiveness.
And to support what Laura was talking about, what I'm learning now also as I'm getting more and more into fellowship advising is that the idea of grades, they can sort of be explained away by your writing and by your recommendation letters. So you shouldn't discount yourself just because of that. So moving on. So you should start now. You should start early. You should think about different ways, different opportunities that you might be interested in, plan a timeline, think about how your work might fit with some of these funding organizations, and not wait until you've run out of funding or until you need the funding for your research like next semester. You should be thinking of making a timeline. And if you're not already, focus on making meaningful connections with your faculty mentors. And this is going to be really important because these are going to lay the groundwork for your recommendation letters. Those letters will often speak to the fact that you as a scholar are someone that the organization should be interested in supporting. So the more information that a faculty mentor has about you, the more they can speak about who you are as a person and not just who you are on paper, the more compelling those letters become. There's a big difference between a letter that that the people have a relationship with the scholar, and the ones that are just sort of writing it because they feel like they have to because of for whatever reason, right? It's hard to say no to somebody who asks you for a recommendation letter, but the quality of the letter can vary. So reach out to us, meet with us, have conversations. We don't need you to have fully formed ideas. We don't need you to even have identified a funding opportunity that you're interested in. You can just talk to us and we'll keep you in mind. We can, come up with a plan together. So yeah.
I think that's a perfect transition to ask Deborah to speak a little bit about
Sure.
kind of how that process does work. So please.
Yeah, excellent. So the three of us sort of work as a little network. We're always kind of referring students back and forth to each other. But my role at the graduate school is really focused on thinking about this work from a professional skill set perspective. So this idea of grantsmanship skills or, applying for these funding opportunities, this is a skill set that scholars will use throughout their careers, not just while you're in graduate school trying to find specific funding for these different types of opportunities that Laura and Jeannie are talking about, but if you move into either the professional space or if you stay in academia, this idea of needing to fund your research projects is something that we really need to understand, and we need to know how to do well for ourselves. So my role at the graduate school is to help you with this professional skill building. So please make an appointment. As Jeannie said, you do not have to show up with an idea of, here's the research project exactly that I need to execute, or here's the funder that I want to apply to. Let's just have an appointment. Let's talk about some of your future goals. What do you see yourself needing in what stage of your graduate study? And we can kind of talk all of that through. And then we have lots of resources available through the grad school, different videos and links to resources that I can kind of walk you through and we can talk about. And, as you're a student, you can start building this skill set for yourself. And I meet with a lot of students that maybe they do feel a little hesitant about some of the more prestigious, bigger awards that are out there. But we might get started on some smaller, travel funding grants or something related to a professional organization that the student would like to get involved in. And all of those, even those opportunities that might seem on a smaller scale in regards to like the funding that's attached to them, they are a step in getting used to this process, building the skills of understanding who the funder is and being able to write your application essays to meet the desired needs of that funder. So it's really a great skill set to start building now. While you have kind of the flexibility to explore lots of different options. And that's what I'm here to support you with. So on Raptor Connect, you can make an appointment with me and we will discuss what you're looking to accomplish at this stage in your studies.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Deborah. I think that hopefully you all got the sense that we sort of have a starting point for our graduate students with the graduate school and with that position that Deborah is in. And then we sort of filter out from that point, depending on the types of opportunities and awards that you are looking for and whether it makes sense for you to then maybe connect with the Office of Scholar Development or the research office. So we have a great network of resources on campus that I think the point is that we're hoping that everyone will start to utilize.
Absolutely.
Fully, yes. All right, I'm going to turn it back over to Jeannie to talk a little bit about the types of funders.
There are a lot of different types of fellowships that fall into different buckets. So there are the federal funders, who many of you probably have heard of: National Institutes for Health, NIH, NSF, NIJ. These often the federal agencies have some sort of dissertation funding that is available through them. There are, I don't know, thousands of foundations, many of which will have dissertation or other types of fellowships that you would not be disallowed from applying because you're not faculty. So some are faculty driven and some are available to anyone. So literally thousands of foundations. And then there's industry fellowships, which we're learning more about each and every day. And we've had some success with Google, Facebook. We have access to a particular fellowship through the Mistletoe Foundation because of our engagement with them, with that organization. So there's some that we're privy to because of it, or because of organizational membership. And then there's some that just are available to the wider public.
So when you're first kind of learning about this process, you might be thinking like, well, how do I even find out what's available? What's out there? What should I be looking at? So there are some search engines and some resources that we can bring to your attention. Of course, there's Laura's office. She can connect with you and kind of, there's an intake survey that Laura asks all of our students to kind of fill out. And then that gives her a really good glimpse of like what your areas of research interest are, your background, different questions that she asks can help her maybe identify some potential opportunities that you might want to take a closer look at. On the graduate school website, we have a grant writing assistance page where there are a lot of linked resources. I mentioned some videos and some workbooks that you can use to do some grant planning work. So those are there for you. There's a website, Grad Fund. Grad Fund is a department up at Rutgers, New Brunswick that does a lot of the same kinds of supports and services that we're describing to you here that we do on the Camden campus. They have a website that has a lot of resources listed. There's a blog that talks about different topics and lots of things that you can check out there. And then when we're talking about search engines and database, Grad Fund has a proprietary software on their website that you can use to search for funding opportunities. It works very similar to when we go into a like journal database and we're searching for literature review materials that we want to read. So that kind of search function operates the same way. But in this instance, you're searching for funding opportunities that match up to your, keyword searches and things. So we do have access to that one at Grad Fund, which is specific to graduate school funding. And then there's also a database, an international database called Pivot, which Rutgers University holds a subscription to. So as grad students or students here at the university, we have access to that database. This is one of the primary things that I do when students make appointments with me. We look at Pivot. I show you how to set up an account for yourself, and then we play around with it on our in our meeting. You give me some keywords, and we'll kind of search that database, and you'll get a sense of kind of what the opportunities are that are around these keywords that you're inputting. And then Jeannie, you were going to talk about some of the directories down here at the bottom.
Yeah, so Foundation Directory Online, I just mentioned that there are thousands of foundations. So Foundation Directory Online will help you to identify foundations that are specifically interested in particular issues. So it's not really user-friendly in the sense that it won't help you find the opportunity itself, but it'll help you to find some of the sponsors that are interested in funding the type of work that you're interested in doing. And then you can go to their websites and see if they have funding that's available. So it's a little bit more time consuming, but it will open more opportunities that aren't sort of readily mainstream.
Yeah,
And
that's
then,
interesting, Jeannie. That's a new one for me. I think even grabbing a funder's name and putting it into Pivot could quickly bring up some opportunities. I'll try that myself.
Exactly. So there's some ways that you can use these to complement each other. And then
Yeah.
for philanthropynewsdigest.org is the sort of website for Candid, which is the host of the Foundation Directory Online. They actually do have funding opportunities. So some of these open foundations, they have them sorted into different subject areas. So that's nice. The website is really, I think that's a really functional, user-friendly website. Better than that is that they will let you subscribe to their mailing list, and their mailing list is not very annoying.
Oh,
So
that's good.
some resources for you guys. Also, not
And
just
this
as
is why you meet us and make
forward.
This is why you meet us and make appointments, because we're always learning from each other too. So there's always some new tidbit we'll be able to share with you as it comes to our attention. These are great. Thanks, Jeannie.
You're welcome. Thank you. And so when you do identify an award and you are interested and ready to apply, the first and foremost thing that I'm going to recommend is that you read through the announcement completely, because there's going to be some nuance that's in there, particularly for graduate students that are going to relate to your eligibility, where you are along your career. Your degree progression is going to matter. Do you have enough time to complete the application? So is this something that is going to be worth the time that you're going to take? Or are you going to be able to accumulate the recommendation letters that you need? And then who will you submit through? So some of the sponsors require you to submit through the institution rather than individually. Most fellowships are individual fellowships, and they're awarded to you as an individual. some of the fellowships are awarded to the institutions to be managed. And so that will differ, that will make whether you apply directly as an individual or through the institution, that'll matter. Yeah, so again, when you find that award and you're ready to apply, if you haven't already reached out to us, reach out to us. Work closely with your graduate advisor. They're going to help you to pare down. Oftentimes it's going to need to be pared down your research plan or what you're planning to do throughout your period, throughout your fellowship period. That's going to matter because you have a finite amount of time, right, to do the work that you're trying to do. And so you need to make sure that you're being realistic with your approach so that the funder, again, recognizes that you know what you're doing, right? You're signaling that you understand that 1 year is only enough to do one part. I think that sometimes what happens is that we think that we have to pitch everything because we are struggling again with this need to prove ourselves, right? And so oftentimes that's a disadvantage to us in the end because it just shows that we're not really being realistic with the time that we have.
Feasibility is always key.
Oh, and there are many considerations that funders are looking for. There are personal factors. So anything that any sort of dimension of you as an individual, there's probably a sponsor that's interested in funding someone like you. And so you should consider that there are going to be ones that are directed towards particular gender groups, particular racial and ethnic groups to increase diversity within certain fields. Again, so the fellowships are investments in you as a scholar, but they're also more sort of at a bigger picture, they're investments in the future as a whole, right? So they're trying to change the future of, for example, STEM education, and they want to invest in diverse scientists now to make sure that down the road we're going to have more diversity within the sciences. And so that matters as well. Again, your stage in your doctoral journey, that will matter. Little nuances, letters from your you may need a letter from your program that says what part in your candidacy you're in. Make sure that your topic is aligned with what they're interested in. That really helps in the way that you frame it. So you may be eligible for multiple opportunities, you will have to frame your approach a little differently.
Okay. So each and every opportunity, as you're probably getting the sense, will have its own process, a lot of nuance, and we're here to kind of guide you through those processes. These are some of the most common aspects, but again, each application may vary. Plan to do a lot of writing. Almost every application that you'll work on is going to have some form of a personal statement, as well as other essays, including proposals about the type of work that you want to do as part of your fellowship or application experience. Other materials that you'll want to plan to provide transcripts. And surprisingly, as graduate students, you may have gone to several other institutions outside of outside of the United States. This can be a process. So again, that timeliness really matters because you're going to have to collect all of your prior transcripts to provide. Thinking about your list of activities, and I know Jeannie and I are serving on a lot of different committees together, and the number one thing we see over and over again is that applicants leave a lot of stuff on the table, as we say. Really, really dig in. And, I don't know if it would be a good exercise to kind of write down all these different things that you've been doing, keeping them like in a file somewhere so that you can easily reference this when the time comes. Because I think that we find when we're talking to applicants, we're like, oh, but you didn't include that and you didn't include that. So having a really comprehensive list of the things that you've been involved in is important. I think Jeannie's done a really great job talking about the importance of those letters of recommendation, and really strong letters of recommendation, people who know you well, who know what your goals are and can speak to your ability and your potential to be successful in what you're stating that you want to do. So it's not just saying, so-and-so was really great in my class last semester and, they're a great student. It's really goals driven and again, finding your fit in the future. And in some cases, awards might require a campus endorsement. And again, we're here to help you with that process at every level of endorsement stages.
A really practical thing that I learned recently is to really literally keep a running list. either in a notebook that you have or some document that you have, is just to say, like, do a brief little description of something that you accomplished as you accomplish it. There are often times where we can say you didn't include this, you didn't include that, because we sometimes know the students that we're working with like really well. But there's sometimes where we're sort of meeting you for the first time through this process, and so we can't advise you in that way. And so you have to advocate for yourself. Yeah, so it's a big deal. I think that oftentimes we try to be humble, but it's to our own detriment. So don't. So again, start early and plan ahead. Write for your audience. A federal fellowship is going to be different than a foundation fellowship. It's going to be different than a research fellowship. It's going to be different than something that's going to that's asking about your service. There's lots of differences that you're going to, a lot of nuance to the applications that you're going to need to keep in mind when you're writing. And, you know, maybe you're writing multiple applications at the same time, which is always, not always a good idea, but often is a good idea. And so you're just going to need to make sure that you're not sort of using the same lingo for everything, and that you're really tailoring it. You're taking the time to do that. Have others review and edit your proposal early. Allow time for people to give feedback. It's really important that you do that. It's hard to do. It's hard to like show yourself to other people that you work with or that you're colleagues with on a day-to-day basis. And I know that writing is often very personal. And oftentimes the things that we have to write in fellowship applications do feel like you're bearing your soul. And so I feel that, but having other people give their insight in on whether they feel like you answered the question appropriately or fully, whether they understand your point, again, whether you missed out on something that they know that you've done. These are all really important things that will only help to strengthen your proposal. So find your person and have them, review and sort of give you feedback and buy them dinner if you need to. And again, make sure that your project is doable. Don't overpromise. Remember that you have a finite amount of time. Sometimes you have only a 3-month window. So you're only going to be able to propose what you can do within 3 months. And that the sponsor already knows that they're only funding you for 3 months. And so you don't have to propose, going to the moon.
So hopefully you're getting a sense of all the ways in which we'll sort of walk you through this whole process, really from starting, to find the opportunities that match your interest and deciding on what to apply for, figuring out if you're a good candidate for those opportunities, and then really taking you from start to finish all the way through the application process. We will help applicants determine, is that person the best person to write a letter of recommendation for you? How long have you known them? In what context? We help you really try to pour everything out to make sure that we aren't missing anything about your experiences, your activities, your achievements, all of those things. We will go through the process of refining ideas and goals with you as you are kind of writing those proposals. Of course, having your faculty mentors on your team is critically important. We're almost certainly not content experts in the areas in which you are studying, but we are happy to kind of brainstorm those ideas. And often I learn so much about all of the work that you're doing. I love the education process for myself, but it's really fun to kind of go back and work with students through that refinement period. And it is a kind of a constant back and forth. So again, that's where timeline planning really becomes key. We provide ongoing and regular feedback in the form of writing and also, again, idea formation, things like that. And we'll connect you with people as we start to learn more about you and the things, that you're saying I want to work on. The research office works with faculty all across the institution. They'll say, there's a faculty member who just wrote a book about that. Why don't I put you in touch? So we can regularly kind of branch out and help you make new connections within the institution, maybe with foundations, even if you're not applying to that particular foundation, to kind of leverage those experiences for this application. We just want to remind all of you to really lean in to this opportunity, to these experiences, don't discount yourself from anything, and just really embrace everything that, we're discussing today. And so with that in mind, we're going to talk about some featured award opportunities. And so this kind of list will cross over a lot of what I do in the Office of Scholar Development and Fellowship Advising, and then some of the awards that the research office primarily is focused on. But this is by no means comprehensive. I hope that that's very clear, because I think you might have gotten the sense from Deborah that those search engines and those opportunities are really just everywhere. Okay. So for students who are thinking about abroad opportunities and really wanting to add language enhancement, a fun and relatively lower stakes application process is the Critical Language Scholarship. It is for any U.S. student, so graduate level included, to go abroad during the summertime. It's 8 to 10 weeks in the summer, and to continue their language acquisition skills. In most cases, the 15 different languages that they offer do not require any prior knowledge of the language. Some will require some exposure of a year or two. So if this is something that interests you, you could spend a summer in between, years of working on your dissertation, and go and really enhance your language skills, and again, make yourself more marketable if that's something that is applicable to the type of work you want to do. Really just have an amazing abroad experience, and we can kind of help you with that narrative bit. Humanity in Action is a short-term 3 or 4 week abroad, primarily abroad opportunity. The application is actually due on the 13th of this month. It's based in Europe, and those are the cities that are listed for this current year. So Warsaw, Berlin, Copenhagen, and Amsterdam. And then they also do have a program that runs out of Washington, D.C. Here in the U.S. And this is for applicants of literally any discipline, any interest area, as long as you have a commitment to exploring issues of social justice and human rights. Those different cities will have different themes. So for instance, Warsaw is focused on LGBT rights. Berlin is looking at kind of their own history of social injustices. Copenhagen is actually exploring climate change, and Amsterdam is looking at minority-majority kind of relations. So based on those things, you can apply them as they maybe are fit to the type of work you're doing. And then you'll meet with a group of interdisciplinary scholars in that city for those 3 or 4 weeks, learning and exchanging information. And then you return home and you continue to be a fellow for the year, working on an action project that is, again, extremely feasible, likely has to do with the dissertation work or the kind of activities that you're already involved in here. So it's something that you can do while you're a doctoral student, while you're a full-time employee. It's a really cool program. The Davis Putter Scholarship is a kind of scholarship in the traditional sense. It is need-based, so they do ask for financial information, but it is open to graduate students as well, and is for people who are already actively involved in movements for social and economic justice. So you'd have to have kind of that historical resume of something that demonstrates your commitment to these issues. And the application should be open or opening soon, and it's usually due at the end of March. And they award, as you can see, up to $15,000 in support each academic year, and you can reapply. The Bourne Awards, they just wrapped their cycle for this year, but this is something that you can look ahead to for the future. The graduate level is called the Bourne Fellowship, and this offers any matriculated, so you have to continue to be enrolled during the time of your study, U.S. student to find a broad opportunity, and they range in time, so 12 to 24 weeks or a full year at 25 to 52 weeks to go abroad. Language acquisition is a key component of the Bourne Awards. So that would be something that you would want to be very mindful of while you are selecting your country. The website is somewhat helpful. You can look at the countries that they are most looking for applicants to apply to go to, and also the languages that are most sought after. And you can apply for any study abroad opportunity in connection with this award. The Fulbright U.S. Student Program, perhaps my favorite award to work on, is getting ready to launch its new cycle for 24-25, and that will kick off in March of this year. And we will be having a dedicated event to kind of kick off the opening of this award in March. So stay tuned for that information. But this is an opportunity for students to spend a range of time up to 9-10 months on average. That's the kind of typical amount of time abroad in one of about 150 different countries. And you can go to one of those countries and be working on an additional graduate education or using credits to come back. A little complicated, but we can do that. You can do study research and kind of be working on something that is either contributing to your dissertation here, or if you're a current master's student, that maybe would be the foundation for what will become a dissertation someday. Or you can have an English teaching assistantship experience where you are working in a school system all the way from K all the way up through university level, where you are an English teaching assistant in that country. And you don't necessarily have to have the teaching background that you might expect. Teaching can be kind of conceived in lots of different ways for this opportunity. As noted on the slide, it's a really excellent gap year or kind of the precipice for additional graduate education. It's a really fun award to work on. Knight Hennessy Scholars is for graduate education, and it's a U.S. award, so that's why I always like to feature it, because a lot of the awards that I do feature tend to have that abroad component. But this would be for any of you who are thinking about additional graduate study, and this is a program that's based out of Stanford, where you can apply for any graduate degree and have that fully funded. You would live among a community of scholars in the Denning House. Everything about this is fully funded, but they are really looking for these demonstrated qualities that are in bold on the screen for you, and essentially cultivating the next generation of, international interdisciplinary leaders. The UK scholarships, I've sort of dwindled it down to just kind of a few here, but there are several more that aren't listed on the screen, but these are some of the awards that, oftentimes students who maybe are familiar with fellowship are thinking about. And these are opportunities for you to have a 1 to 2 year experience in the UK, studying either at a distinct university, like the Rhodes is associated specifically with Oxford, or the Marshall will allow you to choose from a consortium of many different institutions all across the UK. And it allows you to kind of pursue a 1 to 2 year graduate plan that may again be additional graduate study for you on top of whatever you have already achieved here, or kind of the launch for maybe going into a doctoral program if that's not your current status. The Mitchell is specifically in Ireland or Northern Ireland, and they usually the fit for that one is why that location specifically. That's going to be true for most of these, but specifically in that case. The PD Soros Fellowship for New Americans is a really great opportunity for anybody who fits the classification of New Americans, and that definition is quite broad. In fact, you could look on their website and see that they do encompass more than just immigrants and children of immigrants. That slide only holds so much information. It's an award for up to $90,000, but as you can see, it's quite competitive. Only 30 New Americans are awarded annually. But the nice thing about this award is that it is open to any different educational background. So in terms of they're not looking for any certain discipline, they're really just interested in your story and how you are poised to make a significant contribution as a New American. There is an age restriction on this. There's also an age restriction on the Rhodes, and those are some of the criteria that we would be mindful of as we meet with applicants who are interested in these awards. Another newer scholarship is the Sandvid Scholarship. This is an opportunity, again, kind of looking at that leadership quality, and they are providing 2 years of graduate education. So again, this would be essentially like a second master's degree if you're already enrolled in a master's program, but they do provide $50,000 for your education and leadership development programming to supplement. I'm turning over to Jeannie.
AAUW is focused on women researchers whose research is focused on either improving or affecting the lives of women or who are committed to mentoring women in their career. This is one of those sponsors that offers fellowships at different levels. So one is a smaller short-term fellowship that supports the completion of a scholarly article. So the deadlines are usually between November 1st and December 1st, and each of the fellowships have varying criteria. So I encourage you to look at that. The NSF Graduate Research Fellowship Program is colloquially known as a GRFP. You could be eligible for some of these fellowships provided that you haven't completed 2 years of graduate education yet. This provides 3 years of funding over 5 years. So you're able to go into and out of active status. You can sort of hold on to it. So if you have another sort of TA-ship or something like that, it doesn't, you can go off active status during that time. And then the dissertation research improvement grants are, so many directorates offer dissertation improvement grants. Not all of them do though. And what these will do is they'll fund data gathering and field research. They'll basically fund a short-term amount of time that you're doing in order to, again, improve the research that you're able to do. So you have to show, again, why what you're interested in doing is important to your research project, why I would improve it, that you can do it within the time frame that is allotted to you. And this is one of those fellowships that has to go through the institution. So you as a student, you're not the PI on it. You're not the applicant, the principal investigator. Your advisor would be. And so this is, again, one of those that would have to go to the research office and go through all of the required documentation for, that a normal grant would have to go through. And then the American Council of Learning Society is, so like I was talking about before, that there's some sponsors who are interested in sort of changing the future. This is one of those organizations that's interested in supporting diversity and diversity among scholars. And so I recommend that you visit their website, even if you're not interested or eligible for their programs, because they have a lot of resources that are just geared towards applying for fellowships. So yeah, just take a look at some of their resources.
Okay, and so that brings us to the end of kind of our featured awards, but again, we hope that you'll follow up with us to kind of explore the opportunities that are very specific to your interests and the types of goals that you want to achieve and the experiences you want to have. But we like to kind of end our presentation by sharing some student stories so that you can kind of like see yourself here, right? Because we want you to know that students are applying from our campus and they are having varying levels of success, and just kind of hear it in their own words. I also always like to kick off with this quote. I mentioned imposter syndrome earlier, and I had been listening to Reese Witherspoon interviewed in somewhere, and she was talking a little bit about when she was kind of taking on a lot of different types of roles, and when she was playing June Carter Cash in particular, she's like, I'm not a singer, this is really outside of my repertoire. And she talked a lot about having to kind of fight through that imposter syndrome that, we all feel, maybe not as actors and actresses, but just in our own lives all the time. And the way that she sort of kind of fights through it is she learns as much as she can about the role that she is playing, or just really delving into like the education of whatever that thing is that you are learning about. And she says, I'd rather be a learn-it-all than a know-it-all. And I think that that's a really fun way to kind of look at it. Like, there's nothing to lose from going through these processes. You're always going to come out on the other side having learned something tremendous, either about your foundation and their mission and their values, or we hope about yourselves. So this is Patience Williams, and Patience is a 2020 graduate. And at the same time, we worked together in 2019 to apply for the Fulbright Award. She was the campus's first Fulbright winner in 35 years. So what an achievement. And she says, trying is fundamental to getting what you want and where you want. Put your fears aside and take a chance on this application process. It's going to bring you more than you can possibly imagine. You're going to learn about yourself, articulate your ambitions, and realize just how amazing you are. Those are her words, thank goodness, right? And Patience spent her Fulbright time in the Netherlands. When she concluded, she was so in love with living abroad that she spent another year working at a university in Holland, and then just recently returned to the United States because of her kind of Fulbright reputation and her institutional experiences. She is now teaching at Howard University in Washington, D.C. So we're super proud of Patience. This is a current graduate student at Rutgers Camden, and Jamal last year earned honorable mention for the Ford Foundation Fellowship, which, as you guys who are starting to go through these processes will learn, any achievement feels really, really great, and to earn an honorable mention is a really big deal, and we were so proud of Jamal. And he's continued to kind of work on opportunities, so we think big things are headed his way. And he describes kind of specifically working with our office as being helpful in tailoring and refining the ideas and gearing them toward the specific award that you're applying for. So I hope that that kind of reiterates some of the things that we were saying that we'd like to do with you. And Caitlin is a kind of wrapping up her graduate education here, and last year she applied for that Humanity in Action Fellowship that I had mentioned, and she was a finalist. Ultimately didn't earn the opportunity to go abroad, but really made it very far in the competition, had a great experience overall. And again, just kind of talked about the process of learning how to edit and polish your application, and says, you know, go for it, basically. Work early, which we had said as well, and kind of rely on all these resources that we've been sharing with you. My final quote, I do love them. The willingness to show up changes us. So all we're asking is kind of take a chance on yourself and trust in us that we've got your back, and hopefully we'll do great things together. So
Yeah, we've got your back.
yes. Thank you so much for being here. All of our emails are listed there on the screen, so you can get in touch with any of the three of us, and you know, we can kind of direct you through the process. As you know, we're recording, so if anyone would like to kind of ask a question that you think would be great for the general audience and for future listeners, we'd love to include that. And if not, we'll stop our recording, and that way we can have kind of a more intimate conversation. Are there any questions before I stop?